Hello and welcome to Gluten-free. Last week I did a video about the hidden sources of gluten, but I kind of failed because I got off topic. So today's video is Hidden Sources of Gluten Part 2. There are a lot of foods that would seem gluten-free because they don't have flour in them. But there is gluten in things besides flour, mainly barley and malt. So it is extremely important to read the labels and look for those key words: wheat, wheat flour, barley, and malt. So here's a list of things that you might think are safe, but actually are not. Rice Krispies, unless specifically listed as gluten-free. This includes pre-made Rice Krispie treats as well as those protein-esque bars with crispy rice in it and anything else that has crispy rice in the ingredients list. Again, unless it specifically says that it's gluten-free. What makes crispy rice not gluten-free is the barley or the malt, not flour. So sometimes in the ingredients list it'll say crispy rice, and then behind it it'll say in parentheses what is in that crispy rice. If it doesn't say barley or malt, then it'll be okay. It should be fine to eat. Kellogg's actually makes some gluten-free Rice Krispies, and you'll see that it looks like this. It is like a yellowish box, and it specifically says gluten-free right on it, big huge letters. The regular blue box is not gluten-free. Cereal in general tends to be not very safe because a lot of it has wheat in it, so obviously you want to keep an eye out for that. Another thing that's not gluten-free but you might think is gluten-free is oats, and subsequently granola. Technically, oats themselves don't have gluten, but they become contaminated due to crop rotation. If I understand correctly, farmers rotate their crops every year. So, for example, one year they might do oats, and then the next year they'll grow wheat. This helps keep the soil rich instead of draining it of its nutrients. But since that wheat and oats are being grown in the same field, albeit they're different years, but that still means that there's contamination. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Surprisingly, cross-contamination is that big of a deal. You can get gluten-free oats and gluten-free granola fairly easily, but you just have to make sure that it specifically says gluten-free on it. Another surprising source of gluten is soup. You can find gluten-free soups, but they can be harder to find than you might think. The cream of soups, such as cream of mushroom, almost always, if not always, contain gluten. And chili can sometimes have gluten in it too. Make sure to always read labels and keep an eye out for barley and malt and oats. Malt beverages such as Smirnoff Ice and wine coolers aren't gluten-free either. And non-alcoholic malt products such as malt shakes and malt ball candies such as Whoppers aren't gluten-free. Again, it goes back to the malt. Beer has gluten unless it is specifically a gluten-free beer, such as New Planet or Redbridge. Soy sauce unless specifically gluten-free. Teriyaki unless it's specifically gluten-free because it has soy sauce in it. Barbecue chips and barbecue sauces due to soy sauce, but sometimes can be gluten-free. Carnation instant breakfast. Some caramel sauces. Pringles. And I think the most surprising one that I have really come across is Lindt chocolate truffles. Now that being said, there are some products that are surprisingly gluten-free, such as the whole Mike's Hard line of products. People can test this whenever I bring it up in forums, but if you look on their website, it says that they have less than 5 parts per million of gluten in their drinks. And that's pretty good. I mean, that's acceptable. Obviously, there is some parts per million in it, but it depends on your sensitivity whether you will react to it. And my mom has reactions to Redbridge beer, which is specifically gluten-free. But I mean, everyone is different, so the amount of gluten that you can take, is going to be different per person. Some cake batter flavored ice cream is gluten-free, but obviously not the ice creams with the chunks of cake in it. Lay's Stacks chips, which are actually better than Pringles. The Pebbles line of cereal, such as Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles. So when you're looking at this box, it may not be that apparent that it's gluten-free, especially with the low resolution of this video. But I mean, normally gluten-free is going to be written on the package within the top part of it, because that is a big selling point. But if you look right here, where's my finger? Here, it says gluten-free. It also says gluten-free on the side. Okay, so if you're new to buying gluten-free products, it is very reassuring to see specifically gluten-free on the package. Most Chex cereals are gluten-free, minus, of course, the wheat Chex, and most of the Chex mixes are not going to be gluten-free because they will contain the wheat Chex, but it's easy enough to make on your own. And recently Chex has been coming out with a lot of different flavors, and they're all gluten-free as far as I can remember. So, I mean, just check the packaging again. But they have some really good options, and it's not any more expensive than any other cereal that you're going to find. So, the lesson of the story, boys and girls, is to make sure to read the ingredients list. You'll be saving yourself a lot of trouble if you're actually in the store reading the ingredients list. You may feel like an idiot at first reading the ingredients label, but believe me, it's worth it. And when in doubt, you can always go to a company's website and look at their FAQs, because a lot of times they are preemptive enough to actually address the question of gluten already in their FAQs. Now, if they don't have an FAQ section, or if they don't address that question, then shoot them an email and they should get back to you, because this is a pretty prevalent issue right now, and normally companies are eager to help. Never be afraid to ask, because chances are you'll learn something. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and check back to this channel for more.